The longest train ride in the world is 10,563.51 miles. I know this because my grandfather, who we're celebrating today, would talk about it all the time. It was always his dream to take that train ride. It goes from Portugal to Vietnam non-stop with a brief, well, not non-stop, with a brief stop in Paris. But for the most part, it's 12 straight days on that train. And he wanted to go so badly. He loved trains. He loved them so much he had a tattoo of a train wrapped around his left arm, which was really faded, but I could still trace the gears with my finger whenever I wanted to. He loved every part of the train, and he knew every part of the train. He would talk about it all the time, from the different parts, from the locomotive themselves to the tracks to how you schedule a train. And I think he loved trains so much because they were straightforward, like him. When you board a train, you go from point A to point B, and that's about it. It was matter of fact, like he was, and his matter of factness allowed him to love openly and live simply. To my grandfather, family was made up of loved ones, and that's all. I was never blood related to my grandfather in a technical sense. I was inherited by him when he married my grandmother 30 years ago. But that didn't matter to him. He loved me just the same. He would still bounce me on his knee and dress up like Santa whenever he came to visit. And it wasn't just me he opened his heart to. It was my mother as well. He was the one that walked her down the aisle, and he was the one that drove her to the hospital during her first labor with my brother. So he was able to open his heart to everyone despite blood relation. And it was simple to him. He loved us because he loved us, and it didn't matter that we weren't blood related. He also was able to live in a simple way. There wasn't a lot of gray area for my grandfather. Everything was really black and white. He loved his country, so he went to war to defend it. He loved my grandmother, so he married her. He loved my grandmother so much, he was able to take her children as his own, and as a result, his grandchildren, myself and my two siblings. I remember there was one time that my grandmother got really mad at him because he just threw away the bottle opener because he hadn't used it in a couple of weeks. And she was like, "Donald, why would you throw away the bottle opener? We still need that." And he just shrugged and said we hadn't used it. His life was too simple. He didn't want his life to be cluttered by all of this extra stuff. He would make lists every day of stuff he needed to do. One of which from March 11th, 2011 included wake up, brush teeth, drink coffee, and kiss Carolyn, my grandmother. He did what made him happy, and he did no more and no less. During the last month of his life, my grandfather and myself went on a train ride up Pikes Peak. And the longer we were on that train, the more he transformed. He was like a kid again. He would explain to me giddily all of the different parts of the train every time the train whistle blew. And it seemed that the more we went up that mountain, the more his cancer seemed to disappear, and the more we could pretend that he wasn't dying. And I know it wasn't his dream train ride. He never got to take that train ride from Portugal to Vietnam, but for him it was close enough that day. And I hope someday I'm able to take that train ride from Lisbon to Saigon, and I know I'll be thinking of him the whole way. And I'll hear him in my head every time the train whistle blows. I'll hear him explaining the gears and the scheduling and how much of a massive undertaking a 12-hour train ride is. And I'll know he'll be with me for every step of that 10,563.51 mile trip.